My name is Ava, and this is the story of how my mother looked me in the eyes and told me I didn't deserve a home, right after she'd emptied my savings behind my back. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even argue. But 10 days later, the bank called them, and everything they stole was ripped straight out of their hands. Before I begin, if you've ever had family betray you, money, trust, anything, tell your story in the comments. And please, share this video so more people hear what really happens when the good daughter finally stops staying silent. Watch until the end, because the fallout was nothing like what they expected. When I look back on that day, the first thing I remember is how quiet my mother's house felt. Not peaceful quiet, staged quiet, like they had rehearsed something before I walked through the door. I had just come off a long shift, still wearing my work shoes, my hair pulled back messily, and the first thing I saw when I stepped into the living room was my mother and sister sitting side by side on the couch, not talking, just waiting. My mother's hands were folded on her lap, too neatly. My sister, Lila, kept tapping her nail against her phone screen, pretending she wasn't staring at me from the corner of her eye. "Sit," my mother said, before I even set down my keys. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She inhaled dramatically, the kind of breath she only used when she was about to make herself the victim of a conversation she started. "Ava, sweetheart, your sister needs help." I felt a twist in my stomach. Help with what? Lila looked away, brushing her hair behind her ear. She didn't look like someone who needed help. She looked like someone who had already gotten something she wanted. My mother leaned forward. She found a house. A beautiful one. It's perfect for her. Safe neighborhood. Great schools. She doesn't have kids, I said. She will. My mother snapped back immediately. I blinked. What does that have to do with me? My mother sighed as if I were being unreasonable. You know your sister has been planning her future for years. She's getting married soon. She wants stability. She deserves stability. And I don't? I asked quietly. That word, deserve, hit me harder than I expected. She waved her hand dismissively. Ava, you're 34. Your life isn't progressing. You jump between apartments. You don't want a family. You're always working. You aren't settling down. And honey, I say this with love. You don't need a house. I stared at her. I've been saving for one for years. She nodded, too fast, too cheerful. Yes, and I'm proud of you. But it's impractical for you. You don't have the kind of life that requires a mortgage. My sister finally spoke, her voice soft, fake fragile. I just need a little help with the down payment. Mom said, you'd understand. I never said that, I replied. My mother laughed as if I were being ridiculous. Ava, look at her. She's in love. She's about to start a family. You're independent. That's the word. You don't have the same needs as your sister. My jaw tightened. You're asking me to give her my savings. No, my mother corrected sweetly. We're asking you to support the future of this family. I swallowed hard. How much? Your down payment fund, Lila whispered, not meeting my eye. My breath caught. That isn't a little help. My mother reached for my hand. I pulled mine back. Sweetheart, she said softly, this is the right thing. You don't need that money. You won't buy a house. Your life, it isn't built for that. Not everyone gets everything. Your sister needs the down payment more than you. You'll never own a house. There it was. Not an opinion. Not a request. A verdict. As if someone had looked at my life and stamped unworthy on it. I felt something inside me tip sideways. I stood up slowly. If you already decided that, why are you asking? My sister tensed. My mother blinked, surprised I wasn't crying or shrinking back like I usually did. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't plead for her to see my dreams as equal to my sister's. I just picked up my keys and said, I need to think. My mother nodded approvingly, as if she'd won. But here's the truth. They had already taken the money. I just didn't know yet. For 3 days, I avoided thinking about my mother's words. I buried myself in work, in emails, in anything that didn't require me to imagine a future where I was permanently told I didn't deserve one. I didn't plan on checking my savings account that night. I only opened my banking app because I needed to confirm an automatic bill payment, but the numbers staring back at me, it wasn't wrong. It wasn't glitched. It wasn't delayed. My savings account, the one I'd guarded like a lifeline, was empty. Not reduced. Not transferred partially. Empty. At first, I actually laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound. I closed the app, reopened it, closed it again, restarted my phone. Told myself it was a display error. But the balance stayed at 0. I sat down because my legs weren't working anymore. Then I hit transaction history. There it was. A single transfer. The amount matched my entire down payment fund. Destination: Lila Howard. The date and time froze the air in my lungs. It had been processed the morning after our conversation. At 10:18 a.m., I was at work. In a meeting. My phone locked in my locker. Logged in at my office computer under company network surveillance. There was no way in hell I initiated that transfer. My hands shook as I hit the bank's emergency number. I pressed the phone to my ear so hard it hurt. Bank security, this is Stephanie. How can I assist? Yes. Hi. There's a transfer on my account that I didn't authorize. It's everything. My entire savings. I need to report it. She asked for my identification, verified my phone, and pulled up the case. I see the transfer, she said. It was authorized using your digital signature and your online banking credentials. My what? I whispered. Your encrypted login was entered and a signature was submitted. I didn't sign anything. My voice cracked. That's my entire house fund. I didn't touch it. I didn't log in. I was at work. Can you see where the request came from? One moment. I held my breath. The room felt too small. Ma'am, she said. The request was initiated from an IP address associated with your home Wi-Fi network. Same device ID linked to your login history. It appears someone logged into your account using your saved credentials. My saved credentials? I repeated, confused. Yes. The device matched a previous login used in late November. I froze. Late November. When I visited my mother's house and used her computer to print something because mine was broken. A cold sensation climbed my spine. Can you send me the documentation? I asked. Yes, and you can file a fraud declaration if you believe this transfer was not authorized by you. I do. My voice was barely audible. I'll email you the forms and logs. When the call ended, I sat completely still, staring at nothing, as dread pressed into my chest. An email dinged. I opened it with numb fingers. There were timestamps, device logs, the digital signature file, the copy of the transfer request. When I opened the PDF, the breath left my lungs. My signature, or a messy imitation, was slapped on the authorization line. And next to the notation, relationship to recipient, someone had typed, Sister. My vision blurred. My pulse thundered in my ears. I refreshed the screen again and again. The data didn't change. Someone logged into my account. Someone used my credentials. Someone forged my signature. Someone transferred my entire savings to my sister. And I didn't need to guess long who someone was. Everything inside me began to unravel. Confusion, shock, heartbreak, rage, all banging into each other so violently I couldn't separate one feeling from the next. I heard myself whisper, "They actually did it." I replayed the conversation from 3 days earlier. Every word, every tone, every dismissive gesture. And all the pieces snapped together. My mother wasn't asking. She never had been. They weren't hoping for my consent. They were preparing my reaction. The transfer was already done when she told me I'd never own a house. She'd said it with the confidence of someone who already emptied the account. My phone buzzed again. A new email from the bank. Fraud prevention. Options for unauthorized activity. I stared at it. A war began inside me. Loyalty versus truth, guilt versus survival, family versus myself. I felt betrayed in a way I never knew was possible. Not by a stranger, not by a scammer, but by the people who raised me. I couldn't cry. I couldn't breathe. I could only sit there shaking, whispering one sentence over and over. This can't be real. This can't be real. But it was. And deep inside, something began to harden. Something that would not break again. I don't remember the drive to my mother's house. I remember my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. And I remember the taste of copper in my mouth from breathing too fast. But the road itself? Gone. A blur. Like my brain refused to record anything except the pounding in my chest. When I pulled into their driveway, I didn't even turn off the engine at first. I just sat there, staring at the front door. The same front door I'd walked through thousands of times, and realizing that this time, I was walking into something that would change everything. I stepped out. My legs were trembling so badly I almost stumbled on the front steps. But anger carried me forward. A quiet, focused kind of anger that felt unlike anything I had ever felt before. I knocked once. Hard. My mother opened the door with a bright smile as if she'd been expecting me for tea. "Ava, sweetheart." I walked past her. Her smile fell like it had been slapped off her face. "What on earth?" "Get Lila," I said. "Now." My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded grounded, steady, absolute. It shocked her enough that she didn't argue. She called for my sister. Lila walked out of her room with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, pretending she'd been asleep. She froze when she saw me holding my phone in one hand and a stack of printed documents in the other. "What's going on?" she asked, voice trembling. But not from innocence, from fear. I laid the papers on the dining table. "Explain," I said. She swallowed. "Explain. What?" I tapped the bank transfer authorization. "This." My mother rounded the table and snatched the papers up like I was accusing her of murder. "Where did you get these?" "From the bank," I said. "From their fraud department." My mother scoffed, waving the papers. "Fraud! Ava, please, that's ridiculous." My sister stepped closer and whispered, "Are you okay? You look upset." I stared at her. "Upset? You forged my signature. You logged into my account. You transferred every dollar I had." Her eyes widened. "What?" "No, I didn't." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. She flinched. My mother slammed the papers onto the table. "Even if something happened, even if... What's the problem? You weren't using that money. Your sister needed it. Families share." "I didn't agree to that," I said. She gave me a look that made my skin crawl. "You didn't need to agree. Sometimes mothers make decisions for their children. I'm not a child. You're behaving like one." Her voice sharpened. "Your sister is starting a life. You've wasted your 30s drifting around. She has stability, purpose, a future. She shouldn't miss out because you couldn't get yours together." Lila whispered, "Mom, maybe..." "No." My mother cut her off. "I'm going to say it. Ava, you don't need a house. You barely maintain an apartment. You don't have a husband. You don't have kids. What were you going to do with a mortgage?" I felt something crack. Not because she said it, but because I knew she believed it. "So you stole my savings," I said. "Because you decided I didn't deserve them." "It wasn't stealing," she snapped. "It was reallocating." I laughed. A sharp, empty sound. "Is that what you call logging into someone's account and forging their signature?" Lila hugged herself. "Ava, please don't make this a big deal." "A big deal?" I repeated slowly. "You took my entire life savings, and you expect me to pretend it's nothing?" My mother stepped toward me, her jaw tight. "You're not calling a lawyer." I didn't answer. "You wouldn't dare," she said, voice rising. "We're your family. You're the ones who chose not to act like it," I whispered. My mother's eyes flashed. "If you do anything, you will regret it. Do you understand me?" I looked at her, really looked, at the woman who had spent years reminding me how little space I was allowed to take up, at the mother who had decided my dreams were optional, at the parent who thought my silence was permanent. "I already filed the fraud report," I said. Lila gasped. My mother's mouth fell open. You did what?" she whispered. "I called the bank," I said. "I told them the transfer was unauthorized. They're reviewing it now." My mother's voice dropped to a hiss. "You ungrateful girl." But I didn't stay to hear more. I walked out, past them, past the house, past the life they thought they controlled. And once I reached my car, I exhaled a breath that felt like the first one I'd taken in years. My phone buzzed. A message from the bank. "Fraud report received. A representative will contact you within 10 days. 10 days. 10 days before the truth hit them. 10 days before everything they built on my money collapsed. 10 days before their world spun in the opposite direction. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of what would happen next. I was ready. The first morning after the confrontation, I woke up with a kind of heaviness I couldn't describe. A heaviness that wasn't sadness, wasn't rage, but something like standing in the eye of a storm, knowing the winds around me were tearing entire worlds apart, yet inside the center, everything was disturbingly calm. I checked my phone obsessively, waiting for the bank to update me. Nothing yet. Meanwhile, my mother and sister seemed to be living in a different universe entirely. On the second day, Lila posted a picture on Instagram. She stood in front of a modern townhouse with white trim and enormous windows, smiling like she'd built it with her bare hands. The caption read, "New beginnings, grateful for family." The words punched me in the throat. I scrolled through the comments, friends congratulating her, acquaintances praising the place, relatives leaving heart emojis. My mother commented too. "When one of us wins, we all win." Except I wasn't part of us. Not anymore. On the third day, I found a photo of them picking out furniture. Beige couches, marble tables, a ridiculous chandelier. My sister was holding a catalog up to my mother, laughing. My mother looked 10 years younger, happy in a way she never looked with me. It was the first time I truly understood. They weren't guilty. They weren't conflicted. They believed they'd earned this. They believed I could survive without the money, while Lila apparently couldn't survive without mine. But while they were shopping and celebrating and living in delusion, I was in meetings with the bank. The fraud officer assigned to my case, a man named Harris, called me on day 4. "Ava," he said, "I've reviewed your documents. There are inconsistencies that warrant further investigation." "What inconsistencies?" "For one, the device used to authorize the transfer doesn't match your typical session behavior. The digital signature appears imitated, and the initiation happened when you were logged into your company's network miles away." "So you believe me?" I asked, too afraid to hope. "I believe there's grounds for action," he said. "But we need more. We need your full declaration. Once you sign it, we proceed with reversal and internal review." I hesitated, not because I doubted what I needed to do, but because the weight of it hit me in a way I hadn't expected. Reversing the money wouldn't just inconvenience them, it wouldn't just require them to return the down payment. It would unravel every lie they told the bank. It would expose the forged document. It would freeze their accounts. It would stain their credit for years. My mother and sister weren't just thieves. They were careless ones who thought their victim would stay silent because she always had before. I asked Harris, "What happens if they protest the reversal?" "They can't," he said. "Once you declare fraud and the evidence supports it, their loan and all associated funds become subject to our mandatory reversal protocol." "Mandatory?" I repeated. "Yes, we have no choice." Mandatory. No choice. 2 words they never thought would apply to them. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table with the fraud declaration form open on my laptop. The cursor blinked in the signature box. My hands hovered over the mouse. I thought about birthdays where my mother forgot mine but hosted parties for my sister. I thought about every time she said, "You're strong, Ava, you can handle it," which really meant, "Your feelings don't inconvenience me." I thought about the way she'd looked at me after stealing my money. Smug, dismissive, sure I'd fold. Then I clicked sign. It felt like dropping a match into gasoline. On day 6, I submitted my supporting documents, screenshots, device logs, screenshots proving I'd been at work. I didn't stutter once. Meanwhile, my mother posted another picture, her and Lila holding a future homeowner's mug. On day 7, they hosted a celebration dinner with relatives, laughter through their windows, clinking glasses, a cake shaped like a house. I drove past on my way home and saw the silhouettes dancing behind the curtains. They were celebrating with money that wasn't theirs. On day 8, I received a voicemail from the bank. Your case is approved for reversal. Funds withdrawal from recipient will begin pending compliance notice. My chest tightened. It was happening. On day 9, I watched their social media sparkle with delusion. On day 10, I woke up with a feeling I couldn't quite place, like the world was holding its breath. And by noon, the universe exhaled. That was when the bank called them. And nothing, absolutely nothing, in their celebratory world survived the impact. I wasn't there when the call came in, but I've replayed it enough times in my mind that I may as well have stood in that department store aisle with them, watching their world collapse exactly the way they built it. Dishonestly. I learned the details later, from the voicemails, from the brittle messages they sent me afterward, from relatives who called in disbelief, from the pieces I reconstructed the same way the bank reconstructed the fraud. But the moment itself, I can picture it perfectly. It was late afternoon. My mother and sister were in a home goods store, the overpriced kind with fake marble bowls and lamps that cost half a paycheck. They were wandering through the kitchen section, arguing between two sets of gold-trimmed dinnerware. "You don't need gold edges," my mother insisted. "You need something practical." "It's a new house," Lila said, lifting a plate up to the light. "I want it to feel special." "Everything about this is special," my mother replied, her voice warm with pride. Pride built entirely on my stolen savings. Their cart was filled with bags, throw pillows, vases, a rug rolled up and balanced across the metal frame. My money sitting in the basket, disguised as home decor. Then my mother's phone rang. It was on full volume. It always was when she wanted the world to hear important calls. She answered in that sharp, overly polite voice she reserved for institutions. "This is Elaine speaking." A pause. "Who?" "Oh, yes, I'm the loan applicant's mother." Another pause. "Yes, we're very excited. My daughter and her fiancé just submitted." The bank officer cut her off, and my mother's smile slid, slowly, like a melting mask. "I'm sorry." "What do you mean, reversed?" she asked. Her voice echoed between the aisles, sharp enough that other shoppers turned their heads. Lila stepped closer, frowning. "Mom? What is it?" My mother pressed the phone against her ear, her face growing stiffer by the second. No, that can't be correct. The funds are already dispersed. We've already." The officer spoke again, this time louder, because my mother pulled the phone away in disbelief, as if the distance could change the words. Lila reached for the phone. "Let me talk." My mother held it away from her. "They said the loan was reversed. Reversed by the original account holder." For one breathless moment, everything around them fell silent. The store music, the chatter of customers, their own breathing, all of it suspended. Then Lila said too loudly, "What do you mean reversed? We signed the papers. We submitted the payment. We paid the deposit." My mother put the phone back to her ear. "What do you mean pending fraud review? Fraud of what? Fraud by who?" The officer explained, slowly, patiently, officially. The term unauthorized transfer hit them first, then forged signature, then account freeze pending investigation, then mandatory return of dispersed funds. Each phrase like a hammer against glass. Lila panicked. We can't return it. We already used some. We put the deposit down. We don't have that money anymore. Shoppers stared openly now. Fix it, Lila demanded, grabbing the phone. Fix it right now. We need that loan. I could picture the officer's calm tone, the same tone he'd used with me. I'm sorry, ma'am. At this stage, we have no discretion. The transaction originated from an account flagged by the original owner as unauthorized. All funds must be returned. Further action will depend on the investigation's findings. No, my mother breathed. No, no, no. This is a misunderstanding. My daughter, my other daughter, she wouldn't. But her voice cracked, because even she didn't believe that lie anymore. The realization settled on both of them at the same time. I had done exactly what they never imagined I was capable of. I had fought back. Lila's voice broke into a high, hysterical pitch. Call her. Call Ava. She has to undo this. My mother ended the call with the bank, not gently. The sound echoed through the store as she almost dropped her phone. She dialed me immediately. I didn't answer. She dialed again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. On the fourth attempt, she didn't bother hiding her fury. The voicemail that landed in my inbox was a mixture of rage, disbelief, humiliation, and something I had never heard from her before. Panic. Ava, she hissed, you will call us back, right now. Do you understand me? Right. Now. Another message came seconds later. You ruined everything. Everything. I hope you're proud. Then another. This time from Lila, her voice shaking. Ava, please. Please undo it. We need that house. We already told everyone. Please fix this. You don't understand what you've done. But I understood perfectly. And no part of me regretted it. Not when that house existed only because they stole the future I'd been building. Not when they stood in a store, surrounded by luxuries bought with my savings. Not when the universe finally returned what they'd forced from my hands. My own phone buzzed again. A text from the bank. Reversal completed. Funds deducted from recipient account. I sat back in my chair, exhaled slowly, and let the silence settle around me. Not victory, not revenge, just release. And for the first time in my life, the weight they'd kept on my shoulders began to lift. They didn't call before coming. They didn't text. They didn't warn me. I heard the pounding on my door before I even made it down the hallway. It wasn't knocking. It wasn't polite. It was the kind of banging you'd expect from someone trying to break in. I froze for a moment, then checked the peephole. My mother. My sister. Both red-faced, disheveled, panicked. A sharp contrast to the glossy photos they'd posted for days. I opened the door just enough to block their way inside. My mother shoved her hand against the frame. Open this door right now. No, I said calmly. Her eyes widened at my refusal, as if that one word was more offensive than the theft of my entire savings. Ava, she snapped, this isn't the time for your stubbornness. It's exactly the time for it, I said. Lila stepped forward, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Please, just let us in. We need to talk. We are talking, I said. Right here. My mother's voice rose. Out here? Where the neighbors can hear us. Yes, I said bluntly, because I'm done having conversations behind closed doors. She bristled. You ungrateful. Stop, I said sharply. You're not coming inside. Say what you came to say. My mother took a deep breath, steeling herself. You need to call the bank and withdraw the fraud claim. No. Her mouth dropped open. No? No? What do you mean no? That reversal destroyed the loan, do you understand? Destroyed it. That's not my problem. It is your problem, she shouted. We used that money. We paid deposits. We made commitments. You embarrassed us. You did that yourselves, I said. Lila wiped her face, voice trembling. Ava, please. We need that house. We already told everyone we were moving. We showed them pictures. We planned our life around it. And you planned it using money that wasn't yours, I said. She shook her head rapidly, as if trying to shake away the truth. I didn't think you'd miss it. You never buy anything. You don't travel. You don't have a boyfriend. You don't. Just say it, I said coldly. You didn't think my life mattered. No, she cried. No, that's not. My mother cut in. This is what happens when you refuse to understand your role in this family, Ava. Your sister needed help. You've always had more than you needed. I earned everything I have, I said. And I planned for years to buy a house. You? My mother scoffed. Buy a house? Ava, be serious. You barely keep your apartment functioning. You hop from job to job. You don't have stability? I have more stability than you ever gave me credit for, I said, and more than enough to protect myself. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice like a threat. You will call that bank and withdraw your claim. Or what? I asked. You'll take something else from me? She flinched at the implication, not because she felt guilty, but because she hated being exposed. You're being dramatic, she said. We didn't steal. We borrowed. With forged documents, I said. With my digital signature, with my login credentials. That's not borrowing. That's identity theft. Lila started sobbing harder. Ava, please. Please don't ruin my life. You know how much this house meant to me. You ruined your own life the moment you logged into my account, I said. Actions have consequences. You're my sister, she cried. Sisters forgive. No, I said quietly. Sisters don't steal. My mother stepped forward again. Listen to me carefully. Families stick together. Families fix mistakes. Families don't make the same person pay for everyone else's future, I replied. Families don't take from the child they think won't fight back. Families don't decide who deserves a home and who doesn't. Her voice cracked with fury. You're punishing us. No, I said. I'm finally protecting myself. My mother's face twisted as if the sentence physically hurt her. She pointed at me, furious. You will regret this, Ava. You always regret pushing people away. I shook my head. I didn't push anyone away. You stepped over every boundary I ever had and acted shocked when I finally put one up. For a moment, silence. Raw, stinging, final. Lila whispered, Does this mean you're choosing money over us? No, I said. I'm choosing myself over people who never chose me. My mother swallowed hard, her voice suddenly cold. You're no longer welcome in our home. I met her gaze evenly. Then don't worry, I won't be coming back. Her eyes flickered, a tiny flash of realization that she had lost control of me, maybe forever. And she suddenly looked older than I had ever seen her. She turned away first. Lila followed, still crying. I closed the door before they reached the stairs. Then I slid to the floor, not crying, not shaking, just breathing deeply, for the first time without their expectations crushing my lungs. I didn't owe them a visit. I didn't owe them forgiveness. I didn't owe them anything. And for the first time, I understood the power of that truth. The months that followed felt like rebuilding a body after it had been shattered. Some days were heavy, some were hollow, and some were strangely peaceful, like walking through a world finally cleared of noise I didn't realize had been suffocating me. After the confrontation, the silence from my mother and sister was immediate and absolute. No calls, no messages, no apologies, not even a vague attempt at reconciliation. Their pride couldn't survive what they saw as my betrayal, and my dignity couldn't survive another moment of pretending I belonged to them. In their world, I was the villain. In mine, for the first time, I wasn't disappearing to keep them comfortable. I threw myself into work, taking extra shifts, managing freelance hours at night, cutting expenses until my budget was as tight as a clenched jaw. Saving again felt different now. Not a dream, not a symbol, but a statement. Every deposit was a declaration. I am building a life that no one will steal from me again. I didn't tell anyone I was house hunting. Not friends, not coworkers, not extended family. It was the first thing I'd ever done entirely for myself. The first house I toured was too big. The second smelled like mold. The third had a backyard that made me imagine the version of myself I was finally becoming. Someone who didn't apologize for wanting space to breathe. By the time I walked into the fourth house, something inside me shifted. It wasn't grand. It wasn't luxurious. It didn't have the shiny countertops or gold-trimmed plates my sister had tried to buy with my money. It was small, quiet, warm, a little crooked. The paint chipped in one corner. The floors creaked when you stepped in the hallway. But it felt like it wasn't pretending to be anything it wasn't. For the first time in a long time, I let myself imagine a future where my choices were mine alone. The real estate agent said something about the kitchen renovation and the roof being newer than it looked, but I barely heard her. I ran my fingers along the window frame, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun settling across my skin, and it felt like a door inside me finally opened. I whispered, "This is the one." The agent smiled. "Shall I prepare the offer?" "Yes," I said. "Please." My voice didn't shake. When I signed the papers 2 weeks later, I sat at a long table with a pen in my hand and the contract beneath it. The same position I'd been forced into when my mother and sister forged my signature. But this time, my hand didn't tremble. My breath didn't catch. This signature was mine. Not stolen. Not manipulated. Not taken by someone who believed they owned my life. When I finished signing, the agent placed a set of keys in my hand. "Congratulations, Ava," she said softly. "You're a homeowner." The keys were cold against my skin. Cold, but real. Cold, but earned. I drove to the house that night. It was already dark, the streetlights buzzing faintly. I unlocked the front door, the sound echoing through the empty hallway like a confirmation that this place, this quiet, imperfect place, belonged to me. I set the keys on the kitchen counter and walked through every room, feeling the emptiness, the echo, the possibility. The next few weeks were a montage of quiet triumphs, painting walls until my arms ached, fixing a loose cabinet hinge with YouTube tutorials, sleeping on a mattress on the floor because I hadn't bought furniture yet, drinking tea on the porch while the sun rose, knowing no one could take this from me. I didn't throw a housewarming party. I didn't post pictures online. I didn't invite anyone over. This wasn't a milestone to show off. It was a reclamation. A month after moving in, I received a letter addressed from my mother's town. I knew the handwriting before I opened it. My stomach didn't twist this time. My hands didn't shake. Inside, there wasn't an apology, not remorse, not even acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just a single sentence. "We hope you're happy now." I folded the note, placed it in a drawer, and closed it quietly. Then I walked to my front door, my door, and stepped outside. The evening air was cool, soft, settling around me like a second skin. I looked back at my home. Not the home they stole from me, not the home they claimed I didn't deserve. Mine. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. The lock clicked into place. A small final sound that felt like a lifetime of boundaries finally being honored. I whispered into the quiet, "No one opens this without my permission again." And for the first time in years, I felt completely, undeniably safe,